Hello, my name is Mary R. Woldering. I'm the author of the historical and visionary fantasy series, Children of Stone. Today, because it's listening day, I'm going to be doing a reading of the prologue of Voices in Crystal, which is book 1, and available on Amazon. Actually, book 2 is also available, and book 3 will be soon. But I'm going to read the prologue and a very short first chapter. So here goes. Night Songs. O beautiful one, Asherelet, immaculate one of the goddesses, torch of heaven and earth, radiance of all the lands, goddess, lady of heaven, firstborn, begotten of sin, firstborn of Ningal, sweet sister of Shemus, Asheranu, you rule the heavens. O queen of morning and evening sky, Mariah's voice rose like the drone of a horn. Come bless me this starry night, shine for one who begs to serve you. Come bless me this starry night. Each phrase the shepherd sang to his goddess was different from the one that came before it. He never planned his songs of worship. Each part of his song, Mariah worshipped a particular aspect of his beloved yet dreaded goddess. Do you hear me, sweet one? He asked the night sky between verses. Tonight might be the last one for a long time. He noticed his hands were up in supplication, as if they were holding his song aloft for her. Only the stars answered with their quiet twinkles. Maybe there's nothing to sing to. Maybe Sheb is right. Maybe it's time to go. He let his arms drop after a few moments, then trudged cheerlessly into the inner recesses of his cave home to collapse in sleep. I should sing some more. Try one more time. And on a night like this, I used to sing till dawn. I have to think. Tired. Too tired. Mariah hadn't felt quite as bad about eating with his family and the traders who camped for the night. His massive shoulders sagged until he formed the outline of a vulture. Stepping outside, he sat down on the stone ledge that formed a natural porch before it fell away into craggy descent. It's you, my bride of summer, buried by the time of misting snow, the shepherd mused, turning to look at the makeshift pole to Asherah, and in softer place in the shadows. He couldn't see it in the dark cave, but he knew his wife lay there, the bones of her arms embracing the baby girl born still as she herself died. Ilara, I have been here feeding your ghost, quietly watching the sky, Mariah reflected. He shunned the company of the travelers who moved through his family's way station on the copper road, seeking shade, water, and supplies as they headed west to Kemet and parts north. Tonight his thoughts weren't so solidly on the goddess, even though he sang hardly enough to her. He was singing a farewell. It still hurts my heart to go. The big shepherd rose and began his song again. As he sang, he paused from time to time to see if anyone from the encampment below was annoyed by the melodious baritone he sent up beyond the heavens. You change our fates. Evil turns to good. I have sought you for so long among the gods. I have offered all to you. Come bless me this starry night. Chapter 2. The night before the journey. I get so tired of worrying about him, kinsman or not, Sheb muttered. Hura half listened to her husband's continuing rant about her elder brother Mariah. She twisted the rushes around the reeds of a large burden basket. Last one of the day. Last one from these hands before our journey. We should have enough to trade now. She and the women in the remnants of Ahu's clan made the baskets of reed, wool ends, or rag to trade with the travelers for the goods they needed. It was good distraction while her husband argued with the air. He won't talk sense, not even now. I'm betting he'll stay here until he dies if he feels as Asherah bids it. Hura raised her eyebrow when she heard his comment. He'll come. I know he will. It's the grave of that poor girl and the ancestors in the hills that are holding him here. She smiled inwardly as she watched Sheb punch at the straw padding in his floor mat, then sit expectantly, hoping she would come to bed soon. Our last night here, perhaps. The boys are sleeping outside. He'll want a wife's softness to cheer his decision when I shouldn't be the one having trouble leaving. I was born here. He wasn't. She knew he hadn't listened to her. Thinks he will sing her down from the sky, presuming like a god himself. Sheb's hands shrugged up. By all the gods, I wish your brother wasn't so ox-headed about the curse, when we know it's not true at all. I'm getting to where I don't even care if he stays or goes, the Wayman grumbled. We, husband? Hura replied. She died, and she took her baby with her to the underworld. Seeing her life bleed out like that while he cried was too much for him. He's been mad all these years. We know that. Some women die when they give birth. It's often a blessing when the child dies too. Sheb quickly added, it's what he gets for having a pitying heart in the face of her lies. You just now agreed with me, Hura giggled girlishly. You as much as said it was a curse. But 15 years of mourning and singing, and on top of that, his El grows as unable to stand as dough with no leaven. He reached for her, ready to show her he still had his own manly urges. Hura put the basket aside and joined him on his mat. All this time, and not so much as a whimper from his Ashera. I tell you, I'd be an unbeliever. Sheb welcomed his wife in his arms. But husband, you're not him, she thought silently. He's stubborn, a true son of our father Ahu. We owe her nothing, in my opinion. His voice lowered. Hura knew many tribes wandered in the wilderness, from the grassy nub to water hole, moving herds of sheep and goats. They picked up wives and gods as they traveled. If a god or goddess failed to respond to a particular plea, the grace of another was sought. Her father Ahu respected Sin, the god of the mountain of the law. Its peaks reached up to the sky beyond the clouds. Sin was said to live there, invisible, known only by the sound of his thunder and the rush of his storm. No god has spoken lately, though. She nuzzled at that part of Sheb's neck behind his ear. He liked that. So, do we go to Kemet to seek gods who will speak to us? There used to be 20 families here. Now there are only parts of 6. Woman, hush, and come love your husband. He rolled back onto the mat with his wife and began to caress her. Tonight, however, they both kept thinking of other things to say. I never liked being the Wayman. I told you that. Bad crops, near drought, gangs of bandits getting tribute for protection, and rumors we'd be slaved out if we didn't have enough goods for them. It's no life for the sons of Ebak and Ahu. No life for our sons. We're a proud sort, not meant to suffer like this. I want to go with the plan Naeem has, that trade. Hura stared at the little hole that had formed in the thatch roof of their brick house. The one where we let the travelers who have come tonight stay here, and by day we go on to Mizel on the Copper Road. She remembered the reed door hadn't been tied, then got up from the mat. Sheb nodded, waiting for her to lie down again. I didn't trust that deal, Hura thought. Said it smelled like the winter pin the day after rain, and you just thought he was trying to get us to stay here longer. I don't like it either. Reminds me of something. She looked for the faint glow of her brother's torch in the cleft of the distant gray rock. It was Marai's hermitage, his praying place, and the winter shelter for about 30 sheep. Wonder if he'll sing some more tonight. He didn't sing too long earlier, Hura asked herself. After some moments of silent contemplation, the woman tied the door shut and took her place beside her husband. She turned. Asleep? She laughed. In the cooling rush of the night air, she lay awake, thinking of her childhood. You'd think I'd be able to see further than today or tomorrow, but I can't. I was supposed to have the gift of seeing, but life's too hard for such a dream. I have what's real. A good husband, a life protected by him, and a piece of a family in this rocky edge of the wilderness. The rest is gone. Perhaps Sheb is right. It's time to move on. Hura drifted to sleep, disturbed by the faint whispering sound. Children's voices? I don't think our visitors had any with them. Come to think, maybe that's why Marai didn't trust this deal. Said something about men traveling without women or children. Chise? Esai? She raised her head to pick out the source of the faint voices, and wondered if her sons were outside the hut playing tricks on her. They'd better not wake Sheb up. Tomorrow would be hard enough on all of us, Hura grumbled in frustration, especially if it turns out to be ghost talking. If I get him up, the voices had better be real. She listened to the whispery sounding voices for a few more moments. Little children singing. The hushing sound grew and entered her thoughts, becoming a feeling rather than a sound. They are spirit voices. Maybe something wondrous has come. Maybe it's the voice of my brother's goddess, Asherah, telling him to come to Kemet with us, she decided. Go, pretty voices, go, come and tell him to go. When the sound of the whispers faded, Hura's thoughts returned to life at their station. Though it had never seemed worth it, Marai pastured the few scrawny sheep on one of the scrub-grass plateaus above the encampment. Among these rocks and jutting hills, goats would have been more practical. The wet season was coming to an end. On days like this, Hura often saw rain hanging like a gray mantle draped over Sin's dark arm as it stretched along the hills and around the stronghold of Sin-Ai. It seldom rained for very long where they lived, but the pond where the ancient riverbed or wadi ran would magically fill with water from beneath the earth again. If they were unlucky, a rushing flood might even come out of the hills. Even with water like that, the pond would be dry in half a season. Hura remembered better days when her entire world had been tense around that tentative pond. Her father had named it for himself, Wadi Ahu. In those days, Marai had been a too tall and lanky version of all the other dark-haired youths living there. He was the youngest of many direct brothers and sisters, but older than the 5 children by her own mother. She was the youngest of his children. Sheb was the son of Ibak, one of Ahu's younger brothers. The small clan did not increase well. Hura remembered the death of Marai's wife and that birthing so agonizing and bloody. A fever in one of the visiting caravans brought more death. Children withered and wasted away. Women miscarried. Ahu fell victim to that round of illness. 2 years ago, Marai and his remaining relatives began to fight. One by one they left, each blaming the curse of the goddess or the evil his madness had brought to the camp for their departure. Hura noticed her husband's snoring stop and his breathing grow still. He was pretending to sleep. Have you heard the way he sings to his beloved lately? It's been different. It's as if he knows we'll be leaving soon. She inclined her head to the door. I think I can talk him into coming with us, after all. I just need to go to him in the morning when he comes to take out the sheep. Hura drew close to her husband to rouse him, but knew he wasn't listening to anything she said. He pulled her close to his chest. Better be singing a farewell song to his goddess tonight, he muttered, scratching his head. Sometimes I wish she'd come and get him like he wants. It would solve a lot of things. Sheb. Hura felt a shiver of revulsion and drew away from him, then frowned at his expression in the lamplight. You never said anything so... Well, I've felt it lately, the Wayman grumbled, and propped up himself on his elbow. So he's on your mind tonight as you come to me? Hura felt the air between them grow dark and brittle. I was just wondering how he'll do in Kemet. He's so used to the wide open places, Hura lied. Always jealous. Still jealous, she thought. She knew Sheb always had been envious of a man who had so much less to offer than he did. He had always felt unmanned by the secret bond between her brother and herself. I knew something else is happening tonight, and Marai is part of it, but you don't need to know, she giggled inwardly. Seduction by the light of the flickering lamp would be easier now that her husband was a little rested. The group of visitors Naim had brought in for the settlement deal were more of the typical ass traders who usually came to their water hole. They had come in before the evening meal, offering a fine and strong beer in payment. They had settled down, dusty and tired, without revelry. The camp was quiet. Hura set her face against the soft, warm furriness of her husband's chest. Marai's able-bodied and strong as an ox, Sheb scratched the back of his neck under the thickly bound braid of his ebony hair. He'll find work, same as the rest of us, and maybe after all these years take a wife and start a family. Abu Ahu's tribe is finished. You've known that. She caught the narrow glance as her husband continued. You wish for him like Ashera longed for her shepherd boy Dumutsi? Do thoughts of a brother's bed keep you awake at night? Sheb half accused, screwing up his face as if he waited for her reaction. What? Hura felt her heart rush at the uncustomary candor her own mate spoke on this very strange night of little voices. Why, no, tumbled from her mouth, but she knew her thoughts of long ago had returned uncomfortably often. She had her girlhood fancies, but always came back to reality. The idea of herself stretched beneath her big, hulking half-brother, now that he had grown ugly with his age, madness, and lack of care, struck her as so bizarre that it always startled her back to a faithful bed. He was always nicer to me than you were, old man. She sent a thought, but she knew her ever-practical husband wouldn't notice it. He used to go out to the pastures to find him and the other young men. Father Ahu knew I loved my brother, but knew it wasn't good for anything closer than cousins to lie together, even if gods and kings did it. You were my cousin. Then you won my heart. She threw her arms around her husband's neck firmly enough to convince him of her undying devotion. Soon enough, he nuzzled her ear, no longer annoyed. As they began to move together, Hura heard the shepherd begin his song. You change our fates, sweet Asherelet, Asherana. Evil turns to good. I have sought you for so long among the gods. I have offered all to you. Come bless me this starry night. Thank you.